Hello, Ultimate Wellness community. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Mark Driscoll, the co-founder of Intus Biosciences and the inventor of the GutID microbiome test. With a Ph.D. from the University of Rochester and post-doctorate research in NCI-Frederick Cancer Research Center, he has over 30 years of experience in microbiology, immunology, biochemistry, and biophysics. A recognized researcher and international speaker, Dr. Driscoll is dedicated to the advancing gut health and its role in overall wellness. At Ultimate Wellness, we believe that health should be measurable and manageable. A microbiome test is key to prevention, but not all are accurate and accessible. That's why we are excited to introduce GutID to our community, Ultimate Wellness community. And this is the most advanced microbiome test, which you can order directly to your home without medical supervision. So it's accurate, advanced, and we are thrilled to welcome GutID as a sponsor at the upcoming Ultimate Wellness Conference at Faena Forum in Miami Beach on September 26, 27, 28. It's going to be a 3-day longevity conference where we feature world-class experts in longevity, innovative biohacking technologies, and immersive experiences to optimize your spirit, mind, and body. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for supporting our Ultimate Wellness Conference. It's such a pleasure to have your team with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Julia. Really appreciate the ability or the chance to talk to you today.
And I want to remind that our guests, they should purchase their tickets before the price increase, and they can use promo code GutID for special discount. Well, Mark, you have been at forefront of microbiome research for decades, and I would like to know what inspired you to develop GutID and how does it differ from other microbiome tests on the market?
You know, as a scientist, I always go back to what Carl Sagan said, which is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And so way back in the day, my team and I was at 454 Life Sciences, and we put together the very first next generation DNA sequencer, the 454 GS20. And so we really built those tools with the idea that we're going to sequence the human genome, and we did, which was fantastic. But the high throughput nature of those machines for the very first time gave us the ability to see into the bacterial space, that is, all the bacteria that live on us and in us. And, you know, just one interesting fact about that is that we're actually have as many or more bacterial cells in association with our bodies as we have human cells. And the amount of genetics going on in those bacteria can be 100 times what's going on in the human genome, right? So there's only around 20,000 genes in humans, but there's about 2 million genes.
23?
23 chromosomes, that's right. And those contain about 20,000 genes. But there's about 2 million genes working in these bacteria for you. So really, for the first time, we got the ability to see what those bacteria are up to. And that seems like it's going to be important because there's so many of them. But the problem that we really had was that even though those machines launched the ability to see into those bacteria, it isn't sensitive or specific or high throughput enough for us to actually get actionable information out. So we know, for example, bacteria have been strongly linked to basic gut problems like IBS or IBD, but also things like colorectal cancer and pancreatic cancer. And so a real test of the system is, can we in fact diagnose pancreatic cancer and colorectal cancer in addition to figuring out what's going on with things like IBS and IBD? And that's really where we're making the most progress. And we have the most extraordinary evidence, as I would say, that we're actually able to do this. So once again, what we did was we started with some basic questions that are very different than when looking into humans. Like, if you want to see the DNA of bacteria, some of them are really easy to crack open, and some of them are really hard. You need to be able to crack all of them open without destroying the DNA from the easy ones. So we have a patented lysis protocol that cracks these bacteria. And then the information space. So we have a patent around the information space we use to figure out which bacteria are there. And then on the analysis side, we have put together with my colleague Dan Fasulo a machine learning artificial intelligence that is able to take the vast quantities of genomic information that go in and actually do an analysis that can result in a diagnostic for colorectal cancer and pancreas cancer. And just by way of other extraordinary evidence, right? So I have two presentations at Digestive Disease Week coming up this year where we're looking at the cancer utility of this particular assay. So our ability to see the entire microbiome is useful for an overall gut health test, which is what we're talking about here. But our extraordinary ability to leverage that information and also look at cancer is something that's coming rapidly on the heels of our general microbiome screen.
Yeah, it sounds like a very advanced technology which can help us to prevent cancer at early stage. And as of now, we know that a microbiome impacts digestion, immunity, and even mental well-being. I would like to discuss with you how does gut bacteria influence metabolism, hormonal balance, and overall longevity and overall health? Could you please explain this connection of gut, brain, and metabolism, and how does it all interconnected and influence each other? It's a very interesting topic, and I would like we more explain that it's not like inflammation in your gut only. If you have inflammation in your gut, you definitely will have systemic inflammation because blood flows through all organs. It actually just moves this inflammation from your gut to all organs, and inflamed intestinal barrier means inflamed barrier in your brain as well, correct? So it influences mental well-being.
It can. I mean, there's definitely strong evidence that that is the case, as well as just one of the major nerves in the body, the vagal nerve, goes directly from sampling all over your intestinal space directly into the brain. So we know that there are strong and tight links between your gut and your brain.
And the biggest part of this vagal nerve is in our gut. So the vagal nerve connects all organs, and from brain to gut and all organs. However, the biggest part of this vagal nerve is inside our gut, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And information goes both ways, which is super interesting.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's always interesting whether your brain is controlling your gut or your gut is controlling your brain. And as someone who, you know, I think about this whenever I get hungry, is that me actually ordering up the food, or is it my bacteria that are telling me to get on it?
Yes, I like that you bring this topic to discuss because, for example, when we crave sugar, it doesn't mean we crave sugar in our obviously brain. It may be our bacteria crave those sugar and even processed food and even junk food because they survive, they thrive when we feed them with junk food, with sugar. Candida, for example, thrive on sugar. And sometimes it's not like you are always hungry. It's sometimes like your unhealthy microbiome and those fungi, yeast, viruses, they crave junk food. Is it correct? What do you think?
Yeah, so it certainly seems to be the case. I mean, some of our empirical work on making changes to the gut microbiota has shown that it can take on the order of weeks to months to make a dent in really changing that. And I think we've all done things like, I have a food that I really crave, but when I go on a diet, that craving suddenly starts to go away. And by the time I've eaten healthy for a long time, you know, I don't crave that anymore. But then you kind of backslide, and all of a sudden the cravings return. And so it could well be that, as you were saying, the need for those high sugar, high fat diets comes from the requests from your bacteria that are used to getting high sugar, high fat, and making fundamental changes to your gut can actually change that. The other part you mentioned was inflammation. And I think that is incredibly important because some of the scientific work we're doing around the state of the immune system as being driven by bacteria in the gut.
70% of our immunity is in our gut, right? In our gut microbiome.
Those numbers definitely get passed around. And so if you look at it though, and you say, right, when we look at the GutID test, And we see it's very rare for healthy people to have large quantities of E. coli in their gut. Very rare. But we see it in inflammatory conditions like IBS or colitis or Crohn's disease, where just vast quantities of E. coli have now started growing in the gut. And we can see those create chemicals called lipopolysaccharides, and those LPS lipopolysaccharides leave the gut and they can be distributed through the bloodstream across your entire your entire blood system. And so the fact that we have some of these proteobacteria elevated in some of these disease states is incredibly interesting from a scientific side, because you can't control your genetics, right? Your genetics are locked, but you can control your bacteria. That's something you have control over. And so if you have a genetic predisposition to some of these diseases, you can potentially seek to control those responses by controlling your bacterial complement better.
Yeah, I like what you are saying, because while DNA blueprint is fixed, we still can influence our epigenetic expression, and everything, absolutely everything, influences our expression of our genes, from our thoughts to our nutrition, and of course our microbiome. And what are you saying? You're saying that unhealthy microbiome actually can produce chemicals and excrete it to our body. So actually our microbiome can poison our body and downgrade our health with these chemicals that they excrete, if it's some certain bacteria, right?
Well, if we're looking at chemicals like TMAO, which are generated when you're eating regular large quantities of meat, those are known to create inflammation on the inside of blood vessels and contribute to atherosclerosis. We know that bacteria like E. coli and other proteobacteria, they generate lipopolysaccharides, which they put your immune system on heightened alert. And so that's really
it's at any time when we eat, or it's when we eat some certain food. Can you explain? So you just mentioned that each time when we eat, the chemical excreted. But what do you mean when we eat healthy food? It's also excreted. It's also the same process.
Well, it kind of matches to a certain extent, and I'm paraphrasing from the research. What we already know or understand is that regular consumption of red meat in large quantities is not really healthy for you.
In my biological age test, which I performed recently, I do it from time to time with True Diagnostic. I recently noticed that they suggest me to reduce red meat in my diet, which I was incorporating a lot lately, hoping to obtain this complete protein with all amino acids, because you know that we can obtain protein with all amino acids, which is complete protein, only from like animal-based food. It's very difficult to obtain it from plant-based food. And I was kind of trying to obtain more protein, because it's very important for us to receive a sufficient amount of complete protein. And I was eating a lot of red meat. But what I see now, the more I start to research this topic, the more I understand maybe it's better to eat more red fish and try to complement even those plant-based food, and obtain this complete protein, not obviously from red meat, because red meat seems to be suggested not the best product for promoting longevity in many reputable sources which I researched about longevity. So basically you prove this, right?
Research backs this, and everything in biology really needs to be viewed in the light of evolution, right? So if you think about our ancestors, how often would they get red meat? It would probably be a lot less, or a lot more difficult to obtain than because without refrigeration, even if you killed something, you have to eat it pretty quick and then go find another. But plant-based foods were probably what most people ate most of the time. And the diet was probably very varied, right? Because one thing you could find in the winter is not the same thing as you can find in the summer. And so,
seasonal.
Seasonal. So we are really, as organisms, right? If you think back hundreds or thousands of tens of thousands of years were tuned for what? A mostly plant-based diet where we get red meat relatively infrequently, and there's a huge variety of diet that we eat. And so those are all things that, if you want to say what we're actually built for, and that would be that kind of diet, longevity would probably follow that, because if you think about it just, once again, evolutionarily, those folks were the ones that led to us. So they were best able to survive back in the day. And so you might want to mimic what your ancestors were doing if you want the best outcome.
Yeah, we always have to look what ancestors benefit from. And but in biohacking community, it's suggested that we need meat, a lot of meat. Well, yeah, let's see.
Sure. And any of those claims, one of the things about GutID, we try to back our claims with enough evidence that shows, like you were saying, right? You look up the research and see what do most reputable research results suggest in terms of diet? A varied diet, heavy in plants,
Mediterranean
fish,
diet.
Mediterranean, exactly. And so anybody that comes along and says you need to eat all red meat all the time, I would say, okay, that's an interesting claim, but where are the studies or facts backing that up? If you have an opinion and I have an opinion, we have two opinions. If you have an opinion and it's backed by 10 years worth of health outcomes, it's no longer an opinion.
Yes, correct. At the Ultimate Wellness Conference, we will have a panel discussion on women health with brilliant speakers. And we also will have keynote speaker Cynthia Thurlow, founder of the Meat Path. She is globally recognized expert in perimenopause, menopause, and intermittent fasting. And Cynthia will be speaking about menopause, hormones, and microbiome, how it's all interconnected. So now I want you to tell us a little bit about how women's health can be influenced by gut bacteria and particularly estrobolome. Estrobolome, right? Do I pronounce it correct?
Estrabolome. So back in my early days as a graduate student, I was involved in figuring out how the estrogen receptor turns on and turns off genes. And so those were some of my very first publications. Also looking at the estrogen agonist and cancer therapeutic tamoxifen, how it actually realizes its genetic ability to turn genes on and turn genes off. So I just coincidentally, I have a history going a long way back in that. And there's been some significant research on the effects of the microbiota on those. For example, in terms of women's health, we know that there are both human and animal studies showing that your bacteria can affect bone density and brittleness, right? So how does it do that? There are a large number of hypotheses and studies that have been done in this area. We haven't actually looked at that yet, but once again, general health is everything, right? So they tell you to exercise and eat right to optimize your bone health and your overall health. It's an area that we're currently looking into in terms of studies to look at perimenopause and menopause, because we suspect there may be significant changes there. And once again, right, these are changes that it's difficult to counter those, but you can control the bacterial gut microbiota around that and potentially exert more control on what's going on. So in terms of specific experiments we've done or evidence that I have with this, it's the jury is still out, or we're still looking at this, but these elements of general health certainly affect menopause and perimenopause.
So we can say that microbiome health impacts menopause symptoms and estrogen metabolism and hormonal balance. Is it correct?
Yeah, so there is evidence for that. We do not have evidence from GutID necessarily, but we're working on it.
Well, good. Now, you offer two different tests, and I actually have my own. Yeah, I have my own GutID.
Yep.
Yeah. So you offer two tests. I actually ordered the most advanced, like
The CMA, yes.
complete microbiome assessment. However, you also have another test, which is not complete microbiome assessment, but it still provides insights into gut health. And I would like you to explain why they are different and which should we choose. And I also know that it's supported by your licensed platform, Titanium One, right? Titanium
Right.
One. What is the
Yep. So
platform and why it's so special?
yeah, so you can order both tests. That's
Mm-hmm.
up to the person who's ordering them. The complete microbiome assessment and the core gut insights, both of those actually use exactly the same sample, and they
Mm-hmm.
will have an analysis that's exactly the same in terms of determining what is in your fecal gut profile. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the difference is really that the CMA, complete microbiome assessment, goes a little bit further in the analysis. And so
Mm-hmm.
it will give you insights according to what we know about the gut heart axis or the gut brain axis,
Mm.
for example. And so it adds more analytics on top of that. So, and that one is really more tuned to people who are really assessing their overall health with the idea of optimizing it for all of
Uh-huh.
those areas. And so the core gut assessment, which is a little bit less analysis, it still looks at your gut in the exact same way, but it's more designed to tell you if there's something wrong, right? So is there something in your gut that is
Mm-hmm.
completely different or completely unexpected in terms of what we usually see for folks who are generally healthy? And so those two things, the complete microbiome assessment will also tell you that, but it goes a little bit further and it just says, how's your gut brain axis doing, right? Is there anything that's peculiar there? And one of the interesting things we find is, for example, we will show, or we have case studies that we show for anxiety, for example, right, which is a gut brain axis type of thing. We can see if things like bacteria like allostypes are heavily elevated compared to what we'd expect. And we know that those, through various studies, do contribute to anxiety. So you
Mm-hmm.
get that extra in terms of your gut brain or gut heart axis that you get in the CMA assay.
Sounds great. And the most important, I want to emphasize that we don't need medical supervision to order both of these tests, and we can do it at home and send our sample to the lab and receive result through secure online portal, which is very convenient. And you can then at next testing and at retesting, you can assess your results from some protocols, from changing nutrition, which is so important because our health has to be data-driven and personalized and measurable and manageable. That's how we actually understand if those biohacking protocols, they really help us, they really work for us, or they don't work for us. I want to know your opinion with these advancements in microbiome research. What do you see as the next frontier? How do you envision microbiome testing and gut health optimization evolving at the next decade? And how GutID and Intus Biosciences will be taking part in this next generation advancements and maybe even improving healthcare with prevention tools and probably microbiome assessment has to be a core as it is microbiome the core for our overall health. The microbiome assessment has to be like number one test, maybe one of the most important tests, I think, which we should take at least once per year, better two times per year, and assess our microbiome constantly.
Yeah, I think once again, the evidence needs to be there, and that's currently what we're working on. There's been 10 or 15 years, as I pointed out in the beginning, of evidence that these bacteria that live in us and on us are doing important things for us.
Mhm.
And the problem has really been that the resolution and throughput haven't been there. And that's what our Titan One platform is designed to fix for us, give us that combination of both high resolution and high throughput, that this can become available on a routine basis. So I think as we move ahead, some of the diseases, not just optimizing your healthcare, but as I mentioned early on, like cancer, that may in fact be driven by or linked to your microbiome, those connections become much more clear with the Intus Bio Titan One platform than we've been able to see thus far. And so, like I said, some of the early work that's going to be revealed by us soon are with our academic partners and collaborators all over the world. But two of the presentations I'll be giving at Digestive Disease Week offer an early glimpse into our ability to accurately diagnose both colorectal cancer and pancreas cancer, starting with gut microbial profiles. So those will be joined, we hope, by a host of other diseases that also are being influenced or driven by bacteria in the gut. And if you want to think of other examples of this kind of thing, think of Helicobacter pylori and stomach cancer, or cervical cancer, head and neck cancer, and human papillomavirus. These are examples of diseases and cancers that are being driven by, sure, the end stage is a human genomic mutation, but the earliest stages of disease are clearly being driven by microorganisms, whether a bacteria or a virus. So that's really what we hope to use our Titan One platform, which starts with sample collection and ends with an artificial intelligence machine learning analysis. We're going to be able to turn that high resolution tool toward these urgent medical needs, as well as with the GutID test, just monitoring your general microbiome health.
Yeah, it's great that people can use this data to improve their health, not only gut health, but overall health. Thank you so much for this explanation. It was so interesting to dive deep into connection between our gut health and overall well-being and longevity. And we are excited to have you with us at the Ultimate Wellness Conference at Faena Forum in Miami Beach on September 26, 27, 28, transformative 3-day conference. Amazing weekend where our guests will be able to learn from the best experts on gut health, hormonal balance, mental health, and will be learning from inventors of health tech and biotech innovations. And also they will have opportunity to explore devices and eco-friendly products and test eco-friendly products at our expo. And our conference is so different from many other conferences because at our beautiful, iconic location, Faena Forum, we provide immersive experiences such as spiritual meditation, sound healing with the orchestra, and all kinds of practical workshops. We even have kids lounge, so you can come with all your family and enjoy not only this business development and making connections with potential partners, but also it provides a great retreat for all your family. And welcome. Use promo code GutID to purchase your ticket at ultimatewellness.miami/forum. And I also want to remind that we have special offer for our community on GutID test, both tests. As you can see, you can order both of them and perform them at home. And please use promo code Ultimate Wellness for a special discount for our community. Thank you so much for this promotion, and thank you for helping us empower our community with such great tool for assessment and for having these actionable insights on our microbiome. Then we can manage and see results on retesting. So it's so important to test.
Thank you, Julia, so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your podcast.